Well, here we are, 1 o'clock Friday, time for some Holodeck 5. Sorry, just had to go mute the other machine that I'm watching things on to make sure everything's working as it should. Don't want to have that echo coming back again. Anyway, here we are, Holodeck 5, talking about Power Rangers. Now, I want to get this started here as I have started this in the past. If you are new here and you just found this channel because it popped up, said, hey, why don't you check this out? Here's DCBFX. So if you want to give me a sub, I really appreciate that. That would be a lot of fun. I would really appreciate it because I want to know that this channel is growing. I want to know that people are liking what content I'm putting out. I'm coming up on 3 years of doing this and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but I want to make sure what I'm doing is getting out to the people who want to see it. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. So today we're going to talk about Power Rangers. Now, actually, before I get into that, I want to talk really quickly about this. If you saw the news or not this week, I think it was Monday, Jason David Frank, who you probably know him. You may not know the name if you're a Power Ranger fan. Obviously, you do. He was part of the original 6, the original team. He played Tommy, the Green Ranger, and White Ranger, and Red Ranger, and Red Ranger, and Black Ranger, and then Green again. He has apparently just came out recently, has had some struggles with mental health over his lifetime. And he is was just shy of 50. And apparently, this is what I've heard. Obviously, don't take this as implicit knowledge. He had an argument with his soon-to-be ex-wife, and they were in separate hotel rooms, and he stormed off. And hours later, they couldn't find him. He didn't respond, so they went to his room and found him hung in the bathroom. He had killed himself. So in that vein, I want to talk a little bit about Power Rangers. Now, if you've seen this channel or know anything about me, you know I'm a huge Power Rangers fan. I have been forever. Now, it goes well before Power Rangers. I've always been a big fan of Jap animation or anime or whatever you want to call it. That's why I'm learning Japanese. I like Japanese TV shows as well. I was a big fan of, my first real exposure to it was probably Grandizer. My parents, Grandizer and Space Cateers and other shows like that. My parents went to Japan in the 70s and they came back and they said, oh, here's a Sony radio. Cool, thank you. And they also gave me this cool Grandizer. If you know Grandizer, they're all giant robots. He had this cool disc he would shoot out of it. And I have some Grandizer on VHS I found years later. That was the dub stuff. But when I was a kid growing up, I lived maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes walk from school, so I would just get up and I'd have some breakfast, and I would watch, before the PTL Club, Jim Baker and Tammy Faye Baker, before that was a show called Force 5. It had Dangard, Ace, and Space Cateers and Star Avengers and all these other really, really cool shows. I'm not blanking some of the names now, but they were all giant robot shows. I love those. Those were great. I even have, since then, I have some Space Cateers dubbed that I found on eBay. Someone brought all the episodes together and threw them together, and it just was so much fun. Like I remember with Space Cateers, I actually rented a player and VHS tape, and I would pause it and I would draw what the character was and draw the colors in and do all that. And it was a real hoot to do that. And I found those sketches years later. I'm not sure where they are now, but I found them years later, and it was just hilarious. Oh, they ran out. And anyway, so I was huge into that, huge into, the giant robo shows and all that stuff. So even Voltron, which the real Voltron was just the Lion Force, the one they did around here, which was the Vehicle Force as well. That was, it wasn't really Voltron, but they called it Voltron Vehicle Force. But anyway, so that's the background. I love those sort of shows. So fast forward to, it's 1993. It's August 1993. I'm working in a factory, hating every second of it, but it was the 90s. I graduated my degree, and one thing they don't talk about, which people go, that never happened, but up here in Ontario, healthy white males need not apply. I'm a healthy white male. Would you like to work for the ombudsman? No. Want to work? No. We're not taking applications for you at this time. That's racist. No, it's not. No, we're making it so that other people can apply. You're excluding me on the basis of my race. Yeah. It's racist. Anyway, I had worked in a factory over the summers, getting my degree. And I got out of school and I said, I'd like a full-time job now, please. And they said, okay, come on and talk to me. And then, want a job? So I worked there for several years. You've heard those stories. It's why I have consistent and, constant pain and suffering, because I have problems with my shoulders from working at that factory. Anyway, that's nothing to do with this. I was on a split shift. So I'd work either 6:30 to 3 or 4:30 to 1. Fridays were 3:30 to 12, so we could still get to the bar in time. So I was on and off. It was 2 weeks and then 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And it was on this time that I'm on day shift, and it was around 4 o'clock, 4:30, Fox Kids. Well, what's this? Well, that's interesting. So basically, Power Rangers comes on, and it is basically live action Force 5. And I thought, wait a minute. So there's people in costumes. And at this point, I'm a huge comic nerd, because at this point, I'm 93, so I'm 26. I'm a huge comic nerd anyway. So, superheroes and costumes, let's fight crime. Let's do this. And it's live action. Watch this. This is amazing. And it was good, for what it was. It's cheesy. And my wife kind of goes, oh, Power Rangers. Yeah, it's cheesy. I understand that. It's very cheesy, but it's a lot of fun too. I just like it because of the cheesiness. So this picture you're seeing here, this was from the 10th anniversary. So the one in the middle with the gold stripes on the chest, that was the season at the time. That was Wild Force. Now, Wild Force gets a lot of poo-pooing because it was a terrible season. Not that it was a terrible season. It was terribly acted, especially the lead, the Red Ranger, Carlos Medina. I'm forgetting the names now because I don't care anymore. He's gone to jail for murder. He murdered his roommate. Anyway. So Power Rangers was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I started watching it when I could. So I'm on day shift. Let's watch some Power Rangers. And then flipped over to Saturday as well. I could watch some more on Saturdays. But it went on like forever. Like, here are all the logos of the Power Rangers. So starting from the top. Now, I used to know all of the Japanese names as well. So we have Mighty Morphin, and then Alien Rangers, which was the end of season 3, and then Zeo, which is season 4, and then they're all seasons from there. Turbo, In Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force. Now, let's see if I can remember the Japanese names. So, actually, let's step back a little bit. Just here. This whole thing came out of Haim Saban, which he is a name you probably heard about by now because he basically came up with this whole thing. He was in Japan in the 90s doing something else, and he saw the show called Bioman, which was people use devices like morphers. Love SPD. Here's something I made. I took a regular toy and I made that coin. Another story for another time. But this is what they used, and they would, there's no batteries in this, they would use that to transform, or as the Japanese call it, henshin, which means transform. They would transform into these superpowered selves, and they would go and do things. And he saw this and went, this could be really good. How about, And he came up with a plan to license the footage from Japan and just put American actors into it. And the pilot for Bioman came and went. It was like, Now, in Japan, they do these every year. There's a new show every year. So the next year after Bioman was Zyu Ranger. Z-U. Well, here we go. You can read that or not. Zyu Ranger. They were dinosaur-based, and they've had a lot of dinosaur-based over the years since then. But Zyu Ranger, what they use that to then use for the base footage. Now, it was funny the way they did it because they have these regular kids. And the funny thing is, and you saw in the intro, get me 5 teenagers with attitude. He got 5 goody two-shoes. You had the science nerd, and you had the friendly jock, and you had the very attractive cheerleader girl who was not stuck up. That doesn't happen. You had then the hip hop guy, and you had the the Asian girl, and even then it took them about 6 months to notice once they did this. The Black Ranger, yeah, he's black. Yeah, okay. The Yellow Ranger, yeah, she's Asian. What are you doing? It never even occurred to them. It didn't come to them. And granted, all this is stuff based on what I've heard. This is my opinion. This is not anything that has anything to do with anything. Oh, I didn't change my Power Ranger t-shirt. Anyway, too late now. Anyway, so that was the show. And they did it. And it was like, okay, let's give this a try. And in a couple weeks, like, well, I don't know what it's doing. It exploded. It just exploded. It was amazing. It just took off. And then it came time for toys. We don't have any toys. What? That was the sought after toy in the 90s, 93. That was the sought after toy. And the actors ended up going on to, they went to live with the Regis Kathy Lee. They were going all over the place. They had a live show. They had all these things. And then what they did was they had a really interesting thing, because in Zoo Ranger, they had a thing where the brother of the Red Ranger, he's been cursed. I don't know the whole story because I didn't watch the Japanese version of it. He's been cursed, and he can only come up for so long, and he ends up being the Green Ranger. So they bring in Jason David Frank to be the Green Ranger, and when they do Green with Evil, he starts off evil and then gets better and then becomes part of the team. It was like phenomenal. People like, what happens next? Like the next day, like normally it was, what's going on? I gotta wait for the next episode. So it really took off as it became a real cultural thing. And it just took off like crazy. And they did it for years, to the point when they were doing this, they had in Mighty Morphin, they got to season 2 and they went, we're out of footage. And they asked Japan, can you make some more monster footage using, the suits from last year? And they went, okay. But it got to the point they ran out. Like that's what they called Zoo 2. They had some footage of that and they ran out. So they decided to go on a quest for new powers. And with the new powers came, the new Zords. So all they did is they took Die Ranger, which was the next one after Zoo Ranger, and they used that footage. So then you have, they would call for Tyrannosaurus, Red Dragon, Megazord, and they actually just used the toys. So they had the toy of the Tyrannosaurus, and then it's a toy of the dragon. So really, really low production values on that. And at that point too, because of what happened in the first season, the Green Ranger is no more, because really he dies in the Zoo Ranger show. So they bring back Jason David Frank as the White Ranger, and then they're using the suit from that. And you never really see them together because there's no footage of that. So that's how that worked. And then we got to season 3, and between season 2 and season 3, we had a movie. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, which was out of the universe. It was the same characters and the same idea, but was not canon. Canon means as part of the, part of the Bible, basically of how the show works. It wasn't part of it. So we come to season 3. They said, well, we just did this movie where we went on this quest for powers and we had the great power and we saved the world. Yay, yeah, us. Let's do it again. And they changed it enough again. So then we had the Rangers again. And in between, like in season 2, with this huge change too of the cast, 3 of the original members. So Austin St. John, the Red, Walter Jones, the Black, and Tran, the Yellow, decided we want more money. You're not paying us enough. And Haim said goodbye and brought in Steve Cardenas and Adam. I keep saying Adam, Johnny Youngbosch, and Karen Ashley to fill in new characters. So that happens there. So in season 3, we go and we get new powers. And at the end of it, they said, you know what? Let's just do some fun. So they de-aged all the characters down, and then they brought in the Alien Rangers, which is the second one there. And we had this whole story, and then they had this great big upheaval, and it leads into Zeo. Zeo was a whole change. So that's why I said in the beginning, Jason David Frank was green, then white, then red, then, yeah. So when we get to Zeo, he becomes the Red Ranger. And red is usually the leader. In Japan, red's always the leader because red's a very powerful color. So red's the leader, and always weird having Tommy as the White Ranger as the leader when Rocky should have been the leader. Anyway, So that's what we get into. And we're still in the same cast. We're in season 4, the same cast. And then, well, essentially, because we've had some change out. And then in season 4, Austin St. John comes back as another character, which is kind of cool. And then we get into that season just wraps up, and we get into Turbo, and we have still the same cast again. And then halfway through, we zip everything out. And at that point forward, we have a whole new cast, and which then goes into In Space, which is season 6. And then from there, every season is a whole new cast. So a little bit better, because you can't have these guys, I'm a teenager, I'm also 45. And you can't do that. So Lost Galaxy was a whole new team. And Light Speed Rescue was a whole new team. Time Force, whole new team. Now, they did eventually have great team-ups that, well, some were great, some were terrible, but they had some great team-ups. So they went through and did that. So let me talk about a few things here. So I'd say, if I can get through this. So you have Zoo Ranger, and then they use the suits from Die Ranger. And from Die Ranger, and when we get to the Alien Rangers, is Kaka Ranger. And then Zeo was O Ranger. O is Japanese for king. Then we have Car Ranger, Mega Ranger, and then Lost Galaxy was Gingaman. I may be wrong on some of these, but it's going from my memory. Next line down, Light Speed Rescue, that was Go-Go V or Go-Go 5. Time Ranger, Gao Ranger, Hurricaneer, Abba Ranger, Decker Ranger. And then the next one down, Magi Ranger, Bokenger. The Bokenger's one was fun. Operation Overdrive was a terrible season. It was like, and I didn't like half the characters in it, but the Japanese show, I actually watched the whole thing. It was amazing. Bokenger was phenomenal. Jungle Fury was Geki Ranger. RPM was... then at that point, that was Goanger. And then they had some weird thing. So if we look at the whole thing of Power Rangers, Haim Saban had it up until Wild Force. And some of the seasons were amazing. Some of them were okay. Turbo Ranger, Turbo, I didn't like. In Space is okay. Time Force was amazing. Time Force had amazing actors, had a great story. Time Force was phenomenal. And that's hard to live up to. Then we got to Wild Force. Wild Force was, but one of my favorite Power Ranger characters is in that one, Merrick. I love the Lunar Wolf Ranger. I have, behind the green screen, I have my Lunar Q. I'm still working on that Guillaume let me print. I love Merrick. Anyway, there's some terrible acting, terrible characters in it, but in the end, it was a great series. I liked it. It went on, and this was a series that had tons of Zords. Zords were what they called the great big mech they got into. They were all Zords based on Zordon. They had so many Zords. It was just hilarious. It went on and on. And at this point, Saban was selling the franchise. So they actually had the last episodes were called The End of the Power Rangers. And like, okay, that's it. And then Disney bought it. And Disney was like, oh, okay. And then you could just see a shift. Ninja Storm was funny. It was good action, but it was funny. And Dino Thunder, same thing. Dino Thunder had this great episode where they basically, Power Rangers is an American TV show based on a Japanese show. They flipped it over and said the actions of the Power Rangers here are in Japan, and it's so funny. I think it was like a Lost in Translation sort of thing. It was so hilarious. I didn't like Dino Thunder so much, but it was cool because Jason David Frank came back again as the Black Ranger. He came back as Dr. O, and if you start counting the years between here and there, how does he become a doctor in that time? You can't do that. Anyway, suspension disbelief. Yeah. Look at this. It's still me. Didn't change. Suspension disbelief. That's Superman for you, by the way. SPD was phenomenal. SPD was a great season, really well done. A lot of Canadian actors doing all the lead roles too. So, and you're still seeing some of them. The Blue Ranger was on the opening of Discovery. He was on the first ship. He's done a couple other things, Chris Violet. And the Red Ranger, Brandon J. McLaren, has done a lot of things. He's actually in The Rookie right now. He's got a bit part in that. Yeah. So we get into Mystic Force. That was it was okay. Myth Nick Force, because it was all based on Nick. But anyway, Overdrive, like I say, terrible, but yeah. So at this point, Disney has sort of run out of steam. We get to the end of RPM. It's like, okay, and it's done. Oh, all right, cool. Then they decided to go back and redo Mighty Morphin with better effects. Well, better effects. If you watch them, you will probably disagree with me on that. And you probably agree with me. I'm in full agreement that this is not better effects. They added extra things and it wasn't needed. Then they sort of revamped it and they brought in Samurai. And at the point when we got to Samurai is when they have a new deal with Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon doesn't do 20 episodes. There's no more than 20 episodes in a season. So then at that point, we get into the Super series. So we have Samurai, first 20 episodes, and then Super Samurai. And then we have Mega Force for 20 episodes, and then Super Mega Force. And then we have Dino Charge and Super Dino Charge, and then Ninja Steel and Super Ninja Steel. And then we have Beast Morphers, and now we're into Dino Fury. We're into Super Dino Fury. Now, I'm a little bit shaky on these next ones. So Samurai was Shinkenger. Mega Force was Goseiger. Super Mega Force was Gokaiger. So they went from Goseiger in Mega Force, they're angels in the Japanese, to Super Mega Force, they're pirates. Now, Super Mega Force was interesting because they basically brought back every Ranger. So not exactly, well, here's a pick from it. They brought back every Ranger. So they had the ability to change into any Ranger. So at one point they had this whole thing, and all the characters in Super Mega Force, they all morph into the 6th Rangers. Basically, every season started with 5 Rangers, or in case of Hurricane, started with three Rangers, and then it got to 6. The 6th Ranger, they always get introduced, and they're uber powerful. They just destroy the bad guys coming. Oh no, we're going to be destroyed. What can we do? And the 6th Ranger comes and just destroys them. And suddenly his powers go all wonky. So he goes from super godlike to. So they all changed into the 6th Ranger, and that was kind of cool. But at one point they had the legendary battle. And at this point, it's interesting because Jason shows up as the Green Ranger. Well, the Green Ranger powers are gone. That's why he went to white, and then red, and then red. Black, but it's Power Rangers, man. Don't think too hard about it. So we had this big legendary war, and it was kind of cool, the legendary battle, and it was fun. And oops, no, that's not what I wanted. Where do I want to go? I want all logos. So yeah, so we had that in Mega Force, Super Mega Force, and then Dino Charge had an interesting thing where they basically indicated everything that happened in the past because something happened way in the past, and suddenly dinosaurs never got wiped out. So everything that they've done in previous seasons doesn't happen anymore. And then I will tell you this, to be honest, I have not watched Ninja Steel or Beast Morphers or Dino Fury. I haven't watched any of it. I have Ninja Steel on DVD because they were a good deal on Amazon. I haven't watched them. I've been rewatching for a while. I got up as far as Lightspeed Rescue, and I haven't finished any of that. But I really should just knuckle under. I haven't even finished Samurai yet. I need to get through those. So that's a little bit about Power Rangers. That's sort of, me and Power Rangers and what's out there. Now, here's the funny part. I'm a huge Power Rangers fan by way of I got started as a prop maker making Power Ranger props. I thought I'll make a couple things and I'll do a few things. And I got involved on Ranger Board. Now, the less said about that, the better. Ranger Board is the place where everyone starts and a few stick around. I know a dozen prop makers who've said, adios, goodbye, so long. At one point, we had a thing where we had little tags, and I said, well, why don't you make a prop maker tag? And that's a great idea. And so all of us prop makers who were known as reputable prop makers, so like I made the Ninja coins and all these things. I made a lot of things like that, and I got the prop maker title, and I went, you know what? I'm tired of you idiots. I'm out of here. And a few other friends just said, goodbye. And I see them on Facebook. It's like, whatever happened to you? I left RB. Okay, yeah, so did everyone else. But, anyway. So when I was making all these props, I was making money making props. Now, these coins they're not hard to make. They're, if you know how to come up with a few things, it's not hard to do anything. So this is a coin I've made. Get that into focus here if I can. So this is the Dragon coin. Now I based this off of, there's a set of medals that were out at the time, the Zoo Ranger. And I got into a huge bidding war in Yahoo Japan to get them. I spent more than I should have, but I more than made that money back like 4 or 5 times in making these. So I made this coin, and this is one of the more accurate coins out there. But yeah, so all the profits from making these things, once you know how, it's not hard to do, but the profits making them went into buying things. So let's put it this way. I ended up with quite a few Zords and things. So I show this picture because this is hilarious. It used to be in my house. I have a 4-bedroom house, and at the top of the stairs, when I moved in, my daughter was a newborn. So we didn't have the second one. So I had a room that I took over as my office, and I started with a few things. So I had things like my morphers, and I had them up, and it got worse and worse. My wife would walk in, she'd just roll her eyes and walk out. But the saving grace was, it wasn't money wasted. This was, I didn't spend any of, our money on it. It's just stuff that came from, making the props. But the funny thing is this picture, now across top, it starts across the top at the far end there, it starts at Mighty Morphin and goes sort of, in order, other than the large ones at the bottom because they're too big. This picture was featured in Cracked magazine with a caption, "If this is your room and your collection, kill yourself." Which I don't care. I could care less what some idiot at Crack thinks of me. But it's my wife goes, "How is it so mean?" Yeah. That's journalism these days. That's what they're talking about. And I've done videos on this in the past too. Why is it cool that I can walk around, not that I would ever, in a Steelers jersey and have all the stuff in my room and, oh, you're such a big mega fan. But I walk around in a Star Trek uniform, nerd, geek, fag. Well, maybe not fag, no, but they did back in the 80s. But nerd and geek, they called you all those things. Same thing. It's passion for something. So anyway, that's what I had. And then as time went on, we were looking at, changing things up. And this was maybe about 10 years ago. And it was, I don't like having all the stuff in the office because in the summer it gets really hot. I think I will trade with the kids because the kids had the basement. It was their basement full of their crap and their toys and everything else. And I said, I will move my computer and everything down. So all this here is in my basement, and I'll move all the kids' stuff up theirs. So we did that, and that was a playroom for a while. And then some things changed, some interesting things with work and whatnot. So we decided to opt into the homestay network to bring in a student. And we're looking at this about, bringing a student in, and we had this room available. And what you can't see, but behind the door right there is like I said, I like to draw. There's a mural of the first 13 seasons, all laid out in groups. And my youngest said, I don't want you to paint over that. I'll move into that room. So we did that, and we've then swapped rooms. So they moved in that room, and then with other rooms. So I had to bring all this stuff down. So now I have it down. I have this. So this is basically my collection that I have right now. I have a lot more as well, but this is really my Power Ranger stuff. And there was a time a couple of years ago, our CO detector was going off, and the fire department came in and they checked it out. And they went, "Oh, that's fine, just faulty sensor." No. And as they're coming up, they went, "By the way, cool collection." So this is right down by where my stuff is. These guys right here, right there, are actually behind me right now. I have these are the keys. And then those are the coins I was talking about, those the coins from Zoo Ranger. And then you've got the communicators. And then right down at the bottom there, those are the Dino Charge batteries. Now, that was a funny story too, because years ago, I had my Spreadshirt shop where I designed a lot of t-shirts, and there are a lot of them I have still on my Spreadshirt shop. ArgusTees.myspreadshop.com. You can find them. I have lots of different ones. And someone who represented Robert Axelrod, who did the voice of Lord Zed for seasons 2 and 3 and 4, asked me to just design a Zed shirt for him, and I did. And I thought nothing of it. I didn't make it ever available for anyone else to order, just for him. So years later, I'm on Facebook Rangers, and I'm looking for some Dino Charge because my youngest is really enjoying Dino Charge. I'll get some batteries. And someone has a whole slew of them, like the entire run of them. And I said, I'll take them. And they went, and I gave them my PayPal. Wait, are you Argus? Yeah. I was Argus on Ranger Board. Dude, do you remember? You made the shirt for him. And we had a great little chat with it. And I got the Dino Charge batteries. And they're easy to make. I probably 3D print one at this point, but I used to make them. And then finally, down here beneath me, that is my collection of all my morphers. So that's pretty much every morpher. Well, also Oklahoma, Route 66, all the way up to Dino Charge. So in a lot of cases, I have the Japanese and the American version. If there's interest, I'll show more. I'll do another stream on this, just on those. But it has everything there. So you can tell the difference in a lot of them. So if you look at Hurricane or Ninja Storm, the American version is a very like a flat gold, and the Japanese version is a very glossy gold. You can tell like that. Also, too, if you look at the back, can't see here, Japanese writing. So yeah, the original had Japanese because these use the molds from Japan. But over the years, they try to make them more kid-friendly. So for people like me, who's a regular size, they don't fit me anymore. They, up until about, I would say, up until around Time Force. And that at that point, like the SPD morpher is about that big compared to it. So very different in size, but up until then, it was the very same size. So I have all that. And the funniest part is, with all this stuff here, I cannot tell you the number of times people have taken pictures, because I had on my website, I've had various websites over the years, but even on Argus Props, I had my entire collection laid out in pictures. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And people would take them and upload them to groups saying, here's my collection. And someone goes, dude, that's Argus's stuff. So I actually had to take some pictures of these right here with me in front of them with a, so it's like, hey, oh, here's my collection of morphers. Dude, that's Argus's. Or, that's Dave's. Well, how do you know? Well, here's the same setup with Dave in front of it. Well, he photoshopped it. It's not photoshopped, idiot. Anyway, so that is sort of Power Rangers for me. Now, for me, it's always been escapism. I love this. Like, that's why I watch Iron Man several times a year, or Doctor Strange. I just love the escapism. That's why I read comics. I am reading New Teen Titans again from the 80s because it's escapism. I just love doing that. It just, I go again. For me, it takes me back to when I was a kid, and I do enjoy that. So that's what Power Rangers was for me. It takes me back to when I was a kid again, and it was just fun to watch. And I say to my wife, I look at her, I know the acting is terrible. Let me just have some fun with it. It's just like, although that being said, and like I say, I was poo-pooing a little while ago on Wild Force, but there's one thing that Wild Force had that was amazing. They had 2 specials because it was the 10th season, and it is just so much fun. If I'm feeling, I'll just pop this in and go. There's 3 episodes, honestly. There's this one, which is called Forever Red. They get all the Red Rangers together to fight big bad Beetleborgs. That's the costumes they used to make the bad guys. And it was such a hoot of an episode. It's like, more. Also in this season was a 2-part special. This is, like I say, one of the best team-ups that they've done that I've ever seen for Power Rangers. And I've seen all of them. Well, I haven't watched Ninja Steel. But Reinforcements from the Future. A phenomenal 2-part episode. It's amazing. They tie everything together so well. The final battle is amazing. You have all this great, and then they don't just say, oh, that was fun. Great. We'll see you later. They have this great little thing at the end, a little montage where they're playing. Now, the Gal Rangers or Wild Force, they lived on an island called the Animarium up in the sky. It was a great big nature thing. It was all very nature-based. Well, Gal Ranger, got to figure. And they have this great thing where the 2 teams are just playing, and like the 2 super strong characters are arm wrestling, and the girl wins because she's super strong rather than just really strong like the Black Ranger. And they have great interactions between the Quantum Ranger and the Yellow Ranger from Wild Force. And it's so amazingly done. It's just, to me, it's the epitome of doing a good team up, and you can tell the actors are having a good time doing it. So you see them smiling and laughing, and this is real. They're really actually enjoying themselves. So for me, that another one, like Wild Force, pop in this season, give me Reinforcements of the Future, beautiful. Give me Forever Red, and done. And it just brings a smile to my face. Yeah, the acting's terrible, but it's fun, and you get an idea that they're enjoying themselves, and that just makes me smile. As much like my favorite Star Trek episode, Next Generation, Rachel's Lacana. A lot of people hate it because it's a nothing character with a nothing story. I just love Bill Campbell as O'Connor. He's amazing. And he's back into it now. He's on Prodigy and he's a few other things. To each his own is what I'm saying. So to wrap up, that's sort of my take on Power Rangers. May the power protect you. You know, it's very close to the Force will be with you always, but may the power protect you. Something Zordon said. And the guy who did Zordon, David Fielding, did it for a day. You could always tell that he just did some stuff and they went in and they did everything else. They just sort of dubbed over his lines and real quick and done. And it was just hilarious to watch. But may the power protect you. And, you know, it's sad that someone lost their battle with mental health. I feel sorry for the guy. You know, the fact that he just saw no other way out. My youngest has some issues with mental health. And well, my oldest too. They have, anxiety, not to the point where they're going to off themselves, but it's just, I see that and I get it. I don't understand it. It's just the way I'm wired, I guess. As I've said before, I'm in chronic pain. I'm in constant pain all the time. And my wife said to me, I don't understand how you're so chipper all the time and you're just in constant pain. I said, well, it's better than the alternative. You know, I lost my father in his 60s. It's just, I've buried a child. You know, you grin and bear it. And that's me. And if you see no other way out than just offing yourself, I feel for you. I feel sorry for you, but I really feel worse for the people that you leave behind because that's even worse for them. But I'm not going to go on that rant at this point. It's sad that that's how it wrapped up, just shy of his 50th birthday. Well, it would have been this coming year. He would have been 50. And, you know, he made a living out of playing make-believe. And, you know, to do that and have fun with it. And, you know, he got successful dojos out of it and he became quite well known, had his few run-ins with this and that. But, you know, I don't know the guy. I don't know anything about the guy much other than the persona he puts out. So I'm not about to cast any judgments on that because that's not for me to say. And I'm sure people look at what I do and go, what the hell, man? But, you know, it's sad that is how things have had to work out for him. And it is what it is. I'm not making him out to be a saint. Some people are like, you know what? Don't, yeah. Well, I'm not going to go there. You deal with your problems the way you deal with your problems, and that's how he dealt with his, and that's it. So in the end, I must say, I enjoy the whole Power Ranger thing. It's getting long in the tooth, and like I say, I haven't watched 4 seasons. I haven't gotten, or 6 seasons. I haven't gotten to it. I will get to it eventually, but it's been, for me, it's something fun I've had for a good part of my life. So at 26 and now 55, you know, we're coming up on 30 years of Power Rangers. So, you know, have I enjoyed it? Yeah, my kids have loved it. Many trips to Florida. At one point, I made some DVDs for them that basically took German releases of video and I dubbed on the American voices to it and the American sound to it so they could watch them. And that was Wild Force, which was a favorite of my kids because, well, my son used to be my daughter and my daughter used to be Alyssa, and Alyssa is one of the Power Rangers. So she always thought that was a hoot that she has named as Power Ranger. And there's never been a Dave. There's never been a Dave. They don't reuse names. There's one Tommy. There's one Adam. There's one Rocky. There's never been a single Dave. Unless there's one in the current seasons that I don't know about, but there hasn't been a Dave. And how much more common do you get? Like, come on. In fact, I don't think there has been, my brothers have very common names. There haven't been any of them. So, but for me, it's an enjoyable thing to watch. I enjoy watching it. And, well, I did. I still enjoy watching some of the older things and it's fun to do. So, hey, that's about all I'm going to say about this at this time. I like Power Rangers. I would say I love Power Rangers. I really enjoy watching Power Rangers. I can get lost in an episode or a story arc very, very quickly, and it's a hoot for me. And here I am at 40 minutes. It's amazing when you find something that you know or are passionate about, you can go on and on and on and on. And everyone's like, too late. It's funny. I was watching Clue with the family the other day, and a lot of things I say come out of movies. It's just something I will glom onto. My wife will look at me, is that where that came from? So at one point watching Clue, and Tim Curry goes, to make a long story short, and the whole group goes, too late. My family looks at me, is that where you got that from? Yeah. Anyway, so that is it for me. If you're still here, holy smokes, look at you sticking it up for 40 minutes. I really appreciate it. And if, like I say, if you're new here and you have not seen what's going on, if you could give me a sub, I would really appreciate it. And that would be awesome. And if not, hey, I hope you enjoyed the retrospective on Power Rangers. I enjoy talking about it because it's something I can talk about forever. As a total aside, I got my kids Power Ranger Trivial Pursuit once. I'm not allowed to play it anymore. I ran the board my first turn. So, yeah. So that's my video for today. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate everyone coming by and looking at this, or everyone seeing this after the fact. I'm not sure if anyone's even here. Oh, geez, it didn't even show up again. Hopefully, there's no one here that I'm ignoring in the chat. It was up, and now it wasn't. But anyway, so that's it for today. Everyone have a great day. We'll talk to you all later.